guest lock doesn't work for me. So it's like, but we're live.
Hey, we did it.
Amazing. Okay, cool. Everyone, thank you for joining. We had some technical difficulties. So, but I want to welcome you to hour 7 of the Right for Money and Power book launch live stream. And I'm joined by an amazing guest today. So I'd like to welcome Ashley Ray. Ashley is a comedian, freelance TV critic, and cultural commentator whose work has appeared in Vulture, the AV Club, Elle, Variety, and more. She's a creator of Deep Trouble, a Substack where she goes far beyond hot takes, writing smart, funny, deeply researched essays and cultural deep dives that refuse to fit in a tweet-sized box. She also hosts TV I Say, a great podcast and YouTube channel devoted to all things television, where she brings humor, criticism, and genuine curiosity to the stuff we all can't stop watching. Ashley, I'm so thrilled to have you here.
I am so happy to be here. I am such a fan of you. I think I owe a lot of my ability to freelance full time to you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. No, I really appreciate it. And I think we were talking about before we logged on, when we were in the purgatory of not quite live and waiting for Substack. We were talking about actually something really interesting that I wanted to circle back before I get to my questions, which is this idea of reality TV and something that your readers wanted you to watch. So would love to hear a little bit about something that you've been watching lately and something that maybe surprised you about it.
Yeah, I think if you read Deep Trouble, you know I am a big TLC reality person, which is very different from Bravo reality. It is a little grittier, grosser, mostly, but I constantly get requests to watch Vanderpump Rules, especially after Scandival. I've never really been into it, and finally, these past few weeks, I sat down, I watched all of Vanderpump Rules, and I fell in love with it. I think it is brilliant. It is just one of the best depictions of the 2010s I've ever seen. And I did not know that I would fall in love with it. I'm now working on a deep dive on that. Which, if you had told me that I would even watch Vanderpump Rules, a year ago, I had no idea who Tom Scandival was until like 3 weeks ago, and now I'm obsessed. I hate him. I hate him, but I'm obsessed.
I love that. And I think some of my favorite cultural criticism I've read on Substack has generally been about reality TV. And I think that that's in part because I just think it's like it reflects so much of the human condition in a deeply, sometimes ugly way that I think is really beautiful. And Kyle in the comments said TLC, tender, loving content. But I think that Ashley, you write about TV, internet culture, and society in ways that are funny, but also genuinely incisive. How do you decide when something deserves a quick take versus a full deep dive?
I really try not to give people what they're probably already getting online. I obviously am very online. I'm looking, at Threads, Blue Sky, and I can see what everyone is already saying. And if I think, hey, I already saw, a thread or a tweet that really made a great point on this, I think this sums it up. I don't have anything else to say. I'll embrace that. I think a lot of people feel like they have to have something to say about the latest thing, like, oh, I missed out, or I'm not going to get those page views. And that to me is just no better than clickbait and just, chasing SEO. So I think really say something when you know it matters, when you know that it's something you aren't seeing somewhere else. So I think a big thing for me, and one of my biggest pieces, is on the John Benet Ramsey documentary that came out last year, I believe. And after that, the conversation was just so much around DNA testing and how this was going to be solved and why it had taken so long. And mostly younger people who knew nothing about the case, being very, inquisitive and wanting to understand, how an intruder could have done this. And that was something where I didn't see anyone saying, hey, actually, there are a lot of books and a lot of things that have gone into this that really actually make it kind of clear what has happened here. So I wrote a huge thing about that, and I never thought I would write an in-depth piece on the John Benet Ramsey case. That is not, I'm not a true crime writer, but it's something that I have always just kind of been interested in. I had read these books and I thought, well, why not? And that's a piece that still gets shared because it's not an opinion that people saw out there. And then people take that and they use that to write their TikTok videos. So
yeah. Well, one thing that I think is really kind of interesting about what you said is this idea of writing when you have something legitimately to say and not just chasing SEO. And I almost feel like that is a way that it seems like you've built some real trust with your audience, is that you're not just saying some fluff just to catch on to a trend. And I think that what is also really interesting is that you work across so many different formats. And so you're freelancing, you're on Substack, you also have TVI Say, which is on YouTube, and I think all podcast platforms as well. So, what role does Substack play for you creatively that maybe the other platforms don't?
Substack's my favorite platform, honestly. It is the one where I can say what I want to say. I love working with editors, but I think a lot of Black freelancers, sometimes we feel a bit pigeonholed. You know, editors come to us when they're like, hey, there's a Black TV show, would love your take. And you don't always get the chance to write about the things you want to, or they want you to write from a very specific point of view. And Substack, it's my audience. I can write what I want, and they trust me to, you know, give them something that's insightful and different. I also feel like it is a platform where I've been on it for so long, kind of, before it was the cool, before Charlie XCX was here, I was on Substack. And I think the years of just writing and content where I'm sharing my dating life or polyamorous takes, I've really built a connection where if I need to step away and be like, hey guys, I'm working on a TV show right now, or I'm trying to pivot the podcast to YouTube, I can take breaks from Substack and not feel like, oh no, I'm going to lose my audience, or oh no, I'm not in the conversation, I'm going to be forgotten. And that's how it feels on other platforms. You know, if you go a week without making a TikTok, you're forgotten by the algorithm.
Yeah, I think that's really, really interesting to kind of like this idea of like Substack being a place where you set the rules and you decide like what is good content. And I think that that's like really, really exciting. And I also love how Deep Trouble, your Substack, is explicitly about going deeper than just a viral post. What do you think we lose culturally when everything gets flattened to like hot takes that go on Blue Sky or just like really short hot takes instead of nuance? Like what gets lost?
I think we lose obviously just the fullness of people, right? I think I'm someone who goes viral a lot for hot takes. There are people in this world who only know me as like a hot take Twitter machine, and they have no clue that I'm even a writer, or that I, talk about culture, or that I'm an academic. And, they will instantly sort of cut themselves off to me reading anything because they go, "Oh, she disagreed with me on Love Island, so I hate this person for forever." And I think we just get so kind of caught in our little bubbles and our fandoms right now that you lose out on really just finding new writers or new ideas or content that you really might be into. But yeah, maybe that person doesn't have all the same Love Island opinions as you. Maybe they don't. But I think we just have really flattened things to like, is this person fully on my side? If they are, they have my opinions, they agree with me on this. And if anything kind of differs from that, I don't want to engage with it. And I think the hot takes of just social media encourages that. It's,
Yeah.
it gives you that immediate engagement. And that's all they care about. They just want to keep you scrolling and keep you arguing. They don't want you to click somewhere else and read something that, is actually going to interest you.
Yeah, one thing that I would love to roll back to and get your thoughts on if this resonates with you is this idea that, so many creators, and I'm curious to hear how you feel about this. We've all been told like you have to find a niche, one type of content. That's all you post. And like what I love about you is like you have such like you're talking about pluribus and reality TV shows and like there's so much depth to the kinds of content that you post and you share. What is kind of like your perspective on niches? And do you feel like that your unique perspective is in itself a niche? I'm just kind of curious, like, because I know that there's something our writers who are watching right now get so much like about.
Oh yeah, and that is something I get a lot about, honestly. Still, I think early in my career, I started in advertising and had a full-time day job, and I would just kind of freelance and write about pop culture and television. And then I started doing stand-up comedy and doing more comedy writing, and was just working across the board of like writing criticism about stand-up comedy and doing stand-up comedy. And then also sometimes I would just be like, oh, I want to write a culture piece on why 90 Day Fiance is, an example of MAGA rising in this country. And it was just all over the place. And I had a lot of people, experts in the industry, people who are my mentors that I look up to, who would come to me and say, hey, you're really funny, but you have to pick a lane. You're a great writer, but you have to pick a lane. Do you want to be a TV critic and freelance? Do you want to do stand up? You have to pick a lane. And I felt that pressure to be like, yeah, if I don't, I'm going to confuse people. And I definitely do. I think At first glance, my brand is one that people are just like, I don't know, she's like funny online, and it's I understand that it isn't easy to embrace. So that was why I created Deep Trouble. I wanted to say, hey, for most people online, there's more beneath this, and uh, yeah, that's
Oh,
yeah,
I love that, and I think that this is also what I kind of feel like in, like and with pro athletes, like, when they're doing different things outside of their sport, it's called cross training, and they're gaining these other
yeah,
muscles, like, when football players do ballerina, like, or, like, training in ballet with ballerinas, like, they're not, like they're training muscles that they don't use on the football field that makes them stronger and better at football, and so it's like,
exactly.
I'm curious, like, does that resonate with you of, like, do you feel like your stand-up comedy impacts your cultural criticism and deep dives on Substack?
Oh, yeah. I am a lot of my pieces start as jokes. Sometimes I'll just be like, I think there's something funny in this, maybe something about like Bridgerton when I first watched that and it was going viral. My first thought was just like this whole season is just like obsessed with finding this girl semen. Like that's all she's obsessed with is getting pregnant. And it wasn't a joke that really worked on stage because most people had not watched the show, but it did work as an article where I could share it with people who actually, got what I was talking about. So I try to let them inform each other. Sometimes I will think, oh, I mean, Pluribus is a good example where I am just like, it's a brilliant show. I have so much to say about it. And also, so many people are saying it already and talking about it. It is the hit, I'm not everyone is saying what I would want to say about it. Uh, but I do love making jokes about it. It is one that I'm still gonna like make some funny TikToks about and try to embrace it in that way. And I think part of the fun of doing so much and not defining myself in a niche is that I don't have to find something and go, okay, well, how do I find a way to talk about Pluribus, but in an Ashley way where I make it actually about reality TV? I can just jump in how I want to jump into it. So to bring back like the niche thing, I would say don't worry about it. Honestly, make your own lane. And niches, I think, are something you're going to hear come from older people and older generations, not like crazy old. I would hear this from like people like Quinta Brunson, who I look up to, who's like a few years older than me. But I think we grew up with that idea of like brand yourself, find that niche. And we have to remember kids today, younger people, they don't have those same connections. They don't understand what prime TV is. They don't think there is a difference between someone who writes for the New York Times and someone who writes for BuzzFeed. They're the same to them. They don't understand a difference really between like YouTube and CBS. It is the same. So you can really go for it and make your own way because there isn't an expectation of, oh, I think this should look like this. A writer should look like this. Everything is just kind of moved beyond those definitions.
I love that. And I think that one of the things I'm curious about is that, TV has changed a lot over the years from like the broadcast model of like every week, 24 episodes, and streaming has disrupted everything. And then YouTube, and now there's vertical shows. Like, what has like the change of all this different types of content? How does it affect the way you watch and write about television?
Yeah, I think it's forced me and a lot of people to define television as something, which I think for most nerds, we understood TV as sort of a medium. I think most people write it off as the lowest form of entertainment. But as someone who like grew up reading the AV Club, I studied TV in college. I've always seen it as the medium that most represents humanity to me. If aliens were to come to Earth and it was like you get one thing to send them, what would we give them? I would give them a TV with international cable and just say, enjoy. That's going to give you everything you need. It is the most us thing in media, and television is an interesting format where it can change its multiple voices. Uh, and I think now people are going, well, why watch television when I can watch this? Or, this person I follow on TikTok is so funny. And now it's this point where we're saying, well, actually, because TV has so much more to offer, something like The Pit isn't just, like a Grey's Anatomy season 20 episode you might have seen and been like, why is this still on the air? It's doing something interesting and there's a history to it, and something like the studio and how they do one shots that has a whole history to it. And I think people now that they're connecting those dots, that's getting them interested in TV, and that's getting, younger people to be like, oh yeah, I want to watch Mad Men and The Wire and understand the sort of era of great TV.
I love that. I think that that's that historical concept of like the different things that have come before is such an integral part of TV criticism. Like TV criticism, I think like nowadays, like as we were talking about earlier, like so many people think TV criticism is just like tweets about the show or hot takes and headlines, but there is so much into in it. And as a fellow like TV nerd and like I've like with, came up in TV as a TV writer, like I am obsessed with like the history and like the pieces of it. Like it's so fascinating to see like all of these changes. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about is that you built a career as a successful freelancer and multi hyphenate creative. How do you balance that? And is there any lessons that you give to the freelancers and people who are multi hyphenate creators who are watching right now?
Mm. I definitely am. I had to learn to be precious with my time. I think when I first started, and I mean, also, I mean, you have that fear of like, will I have enough gigs? Will I have enough jobs? Can I do this? Like, you say yes to everything. And then I think quickly you realize you can't say yes to everything. I tried to do like a year of yes and like say yes. And I ended up wasting so much time and trusting voices over my own and my own instinct. And that I think at the end of the day didn't make me a stronger writer. It didn't sort of help me achieve more goals. It just gave me maybe a little more experience in like that kind of project, which is always great. But at the end of it, I realized like, oh, I should have been so much more strategic with my time then. And I could have done this and I could have finished this. And, that I think is a hard thing to learn because you want to be involved. It's so great when someone comes to you and it's like, oh, they know my name. Like, yes, I got chosen for this. But it really takes time to know yourself and your voice and your interest to go, is this the opportunity for me? Or is this going to distract from something that could be for me? And I think that's still something that I struggle with. Where if someone is like, I think you'd be great for this, I'll just be like, if you say so, okay, sure. And then like 2 months in, I'm like, wait, this, this is something, this is like your vision. Okay. And so I try to tell people, really ask yourself, is this what you want to do? If you are getting up to work on this project and you're like groaning and rolling your eyes, is this something you want to work on? Are you bringing everybody else's vibe down? Like, ask
Mhm.
yourself. Because that's another part is, if you're showing up and you're like, oh, I'm so bored, everyone can tell. So, really being careful with my time, it made it so I could bring my best self to projects. I wasn't like showing up at a show I agreed to host at like 2 in the morning because I just wanted stage time. And now I'm like, why did I do this?
I love that. And I think that understanding when to say no is because like everything you say yes to automatically means you're saying no to something else, whether that's putting more time into your own projects, putting more time into your
Yeah.
Substack or things like that. And so I think that's something a lot of people who are watching right now deal with, and myself included, is trying to figure out what to say yes to, what to say no to. Um, I have a few more questions for you, but for those who are listening, if you have questions for Ashley that you want to ask, go ahead and drop them in the chat below. But Ashley, the next question I have for you is that you have like a dueling docs series that is a reader favorite on your Substack, and you talk about documentaries quite a bit. What does like how do you feel about documentaries? Do you like what are some of your favorites and like what do you think about that format for narratives? Like would love to hear kind of like your take on documentaries and any recommendations you have for
Yeah.
people.
Oh, honestly, I am obsessed with documentaries. I love them. It is I when I dream of like retirement, I am like, oh, that's just when I'm just gonna make documentaries for the rest of my life, and I don't interview
Ooh.
people about murders. I don't know. I love all. I watch every kind of documentary. The best, honestly, are on Tubi. They have a great archive of docs
Ooh.
from just every period of time. The one on there that I am so obsessed with is called "I Think We're Alone Now." And it is about these people in the late 90s, early 2000s who were obsessed with, oh gosh, I think her name is Tina Marie. She made the song, I Think We're Alone Now. Tiffany East. Anyway, she's an 80s singer, and it's about these people who are obsessed with her. They have created a fan club, and it's 90s fan clubs where it's like they're emailing and like going to her shows. And it eventually becomes about these two people who are too obsessed with her and how they dedicate their whole lives to her. And one of them begins to think that she's in a relationship with her. And one, like, eventually the singer has to get a restraining order. And it looks at, to me, it really showcases how we've gotten to today's version of standum and just parasocial relationships with celebrity. And when you see like what she means to them, it's like, okay, this is they should re-release this. This is very great. Um, and then one that recently came out, I love a cult doc. I think those are, what usually get people into them. Most dueling doc episodes are about cults because there's so many cult documentaries. And one that just came out is Sins of the Cult on HBO Max. And it is about the cult that Andrea Yates was in. Andrea Yates is the woman who killed her 5 children in Texas. And a lot of people don't know that she actually was in a cult that led her to do that. And one of the children, another member of the cult, came forward to make this documentary. And his name is Moses Storm. He is a hilarious stand up comic. So, talk about different lanes. I
Yeah.
have done a lot of shows with him. You have probably seen him in a bunch of movies and TV shows. Moses is incredibly talented. And I was 5 minutes into this documentary and I'm like, this guy looks a lot like Moses Storm. And it is him. And it is about him growing up in this really terrifying cult, and how he now turns that into comedy. They also interview Rusty Yates, Andrea's husband at the time, and how he understood his wife like slowly lost her mind to this cult. So definitely an amazing watch that I think gets at what I like about documentaries now, which is that they are so much more victim focused. Like this documentary isn't about this evil man and how he tortured children. It is about the victims and how they've gotten their lives together.
Mm.
And even with Rusty, how he has managed, losing all of his children and what his life is like, and how he had to forgive his wife and understand her mental illness. And, I think a lot of people still think about true crime as like what your mom probably watched on Oxygen during the day. And it's like horrible reenactments and it's corny. But it's just all changed. Documentaries, the entire industry, I think, has become very, first of all, female led. A lot of the best documentarians right now, Erin Lee Carr, they're women, making just amazing docs about their families and what interests them. Because a lot of times now, true crime is about women who were ignored. It's about women who went to police and were ignored, and who tried to do something and were ignored. And this documentary is what they have. So I think now it's become a way for people to take back power when it used to be a real tool for like propaganda and pushing narratives that the media wanted to push. And now instead we're getting shows like Evil Lives Here, which is fully about, people who had to live with these people and how their lives have changed. So to me, that is why I say to people, don't write that documentary off that you see on Max. Don't be like, oh, that seems corny. Because it's probably gonna frustrate you and be so good.
Yeah, I love that. And I also think that when you were talking about like the documentarian who was also a comedian, I think that there are so many things that as a stand-up comic, you probably are practicing the muscle of having to think on your feet and reframing questions. As a documentarian, like thinking in narratives and thinking quickly when you're interviewing a subject, I think translates really well across. So I think that's really cool. And in the chat, Diamond says layers for sure, when you're talking about the layers. And then Kyle has a question in the chat. He says, what is your opinion of the current TV landscape compared to when you were first getting into it?
Ooh, I mean, it's so different. I mean, when I first got into television, truly, I would say loving it and studying it, where I was, not just watching 30 Rock, but like printing out the scripts to actually read them. I mean, there you go. We had shows like 30 Rock. Like my Thursday night was The Office, 30 Rock, Parks and Recreation, and Community.
Wow,
Like that's crazy.
incredible.
Like that was my TV. And Grey's Anatomy when it was still good on Thursday nights. I mean, and then every show had like 22 episodes, and people understood sort of the language of TV. Like people knew like prime time is this, or just meta references like, 30 Rock could do an entire episode about Conan not getting the Tonight Show because we were such a monoculture. And now, like, when you write scripts, it's like, don't put something like that in there because that's no one's going to know what you're talking about 4 months from now. So don't make these pop culture references. And there's just so many places for a show to be. Like a Netflix show is going to be different than a show you would write for like NBC in 2015. And knowing that you have to write for like 8 episodes changes the way you think about everything and how you like even plot out a season. So part of it I think is just very frustrating because I think shows and writers and all the people who love TV don't get to develop the way that they used to. They don't get to, you know, create these worlds or get the experience you get in a 22 room or 22 episode writer's room. And I think we're seeing the impact of that where there aren't shows that I would say are like carrying the legacies of past shows with like a new generation of showrunners. Right now, all the best shows you're going to be like, oh, Vince Gilligan, yeah, we know him.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, Mike White, we know him, and Shonda still, Issa Rae, and I think Quinta Brunson is maybe the sort of last young showrunner I've seen really blow up. And she also came up under the like old school style of like she had a CBS show. She, worked on a lot of CBS shows and has that traditional background. So to me, I think it's interesting that we don't see a young guard rising. We don't have like a Lena Dunham of our moment right now. I know people want to say we do, but I think Rachel Sennett is doing something original. She's doing her own thing. Okay. So, to me, she's I just feel like is doing movies and is just as a career doing so much more than wanting to like focus on defining TV. So, I think that to me makes me kind of afraid because I think is TV becoming less relevant? Is it a, a medium that people don't want to really create for anymore? But then I'm like, no, there's people like me. We love TV. We're always going to love
Yeah.
TV, and no, it's television. And there are still shows that excite me, like Paradise. I mean, there's St. Dennis Medical. There's so many shows on right now. Industry just came back, and when I see how excited people get about like heated rivalry, that gives me faith again. That show immediately built like a little fandom and has just blown up. And I think, no, people still really can relate to TV. And now we just also have other things. So I also watch TikToks. I'm trying to get into what Kick. I tried it. So,
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that you're totally right. And I think that like I'm very excited for the pit to come back. I watched the most
uh,
recent episode back. I'm like, thank goodness this is back. So
yeah.
one of the things that you're so kind to do is you're giving away one comp to 12-month subscription to Deep Trouble to somebody watching live right now. So to everyone who's watching live, if you could drop in the comments an answer to this question, which is what's one piece of culture you wish someone would actually slow down and analyze properly and why? And in just a minute,
Ooh.
Ashley is going to pick her favorite. Again, that question is what is one piece of culture you wish someone would actually slow down and analyze properly and why? And then I have some more questions for you, Ashley, and then we'll go back to the chat and pick a winner.
I do want to say Deep Trouble has been on hiatus, but we're back. So this year you're gonna want it because there's a lot coming out. So if
Yeah,
you're
no,
like,
it's
oh,
excellent.
it's
Yes.
coming. So
No, awesome. It's high quality. And I also think that like I also love going back and reading your archives too, because I'm like, this stuff doesn't age. Like this is like fine wine. It's very like
there's
delicious commentary. And then
There's so
so
much in there. Like a lot of times people will be like, "Oh my gosh, have you ever talked about Below Deck?" And I'm like, "So I have about 40 episodes of Below Deck and about
I see
10
that.
articles you're going to want to read." So,
Yeah, and I think people are also revisiting, like some people have never seen some of these shows like Below Deck, and this is something that they could return to with your articles by their side. And I think that that's like the fun part of cultural criticism that I love. So another question that I have for you is that what is something that has changed your mind about either culturally or creatively? Like what is something that has changed your mind after spending years writing critically about media? Like this could be something your mind has changed about how media is made or topics or creators or like your own practice as a comedian and a creator of all of these different things.
this might be driven by my recent Vanderpump Rules binge, but I think I've always been somewhat dismissive of the Real Housewives, that genre of TV. Just it to me was, I guess, something I looked at like a lot of people look at true crime, where I was like, it's whatever, it's just people arguing, it's manufactured and it's fake. And after watching a lot of Vanderpump Rules and Shaws of Sunset and pretty much every Real House, I just have watched every Bravo show now beyond Below Deck. That was the only one I did because it's actual people, not just rich people. But I've kind of realized it's its own world and its own language of TV that's really interesting. And I wish that I hadn't sort of like just written it off all these years. I wish I'd started watching it all earlier because it does explain so much of how I feel like people operate on social media and how people engage with each other and how we use accountability. And a lot of times I'm like, I don't understand why people are like pushing this random person online to like be accountable. You don't know this person. And then I'll watch Real Housewives and I'm like, oh, because this is how they do things. Like people are socialized, like they're like, this is how you socialize, hold them accountable.
Mm.
And it's just interesting to like see how that is impacting younger people. And that's, I feel like the TV they're more growing up with and what they're accustomed to. My nieces who are like in their early 20s, they have never seen Saturday Night Live and don't know what it is, but they do know the Kardashians. So
Yeah, no, it's interesting. We're kind of seeing in culture different things, and for those of you who are still joining, what's one piece of culture you wish someone would actually slow down and analyze properly? That's the question that we're doing for the giveaway. Ashley is kind enough to give away one annual paid subscription to Deep Trouble from somebody who leaves a comment about a piece of culture you wish someone would actually slow down and analyze properly. We have some good answers so far, but for my next question for you, Ashley.
these are all really good. I just want to
I
say,
know. Yeah. No,
I'm
this
like,
is
I
we
want
have
to do all of these.
so there's this constant pressure actually for writers that want to cover culture but feel pressure to be constantly online and reactive. What advice would you give them about going deep with something when it's just like there's so much pressure to just be like constantly just like what is new, what is new, what is new?
Yeah. Again, ask yourself, am I bringing something new to the conversation? Am I just repeating talking points that people have already heard, but I feel like, oh, I need it on my channel just so I can get some of those views? And, I think it isn't bad these days to say, yeah, I want subscribers, I want the views, I want followers. That is, yeah, we all want that, but the way you get it is by giving people content they want. It isn't just by jumping on the trends. And I think we all have seen that from, the people who are successful. It isn't because they've done that, it's because they've really created their own voices. So I think that's what's more important is that people come to you because they want your voice, they want a certain perspective. No one is just kind of jumping into the latest topic and going, that is how some people will go viral, but it's not something you can like maintain, or you might feel pressure to constantly chase that and to repeat that content. And then you get put into kind of like another bubble or pigeonhole. And, so I just think, again, when something you feel, and I don't know, I tend to just sort of feel it. I'll be like, I wonder if anyone else is asking this question. I just started the new season of My Strange Addiction, which is a just terrifying show to watch on TLC. This season has like a woman who snorts all of her food. She like puts it in a blender and snorts it up a straw. And
Oh boy.
yeah, and there's like another one where this woman is like addicted to the smell of her father's underwear. There's just a lot of things that to me was like, as a producer, how do you feel okay filming this? Like, are you not like
Mm.
getting authorities involved? Like, what is the line? And there have been a few shows on TLC where someone has been arrested recently, or it's come out that there's been abuse. And I've just been very curious about like that line of like, for this kind of reality show where it's more seen as a documentary versus fake reality on Bravo, where is that line? What is sort of like the producer code of like, when do you step in? Because in documentary, you don't. That's like very much part of it. And there's some terrifying documentaries where, the person is just like, I have to record. And it's interesting in television because there are times when a producer will step in and be like, this is too horrific. We need to stop this. And times
Mm.
when they don't. So, I do a search, I look online, I'm like, I don't really see anyone talking about like 90 Day Fiance from this perspective. You know, does anyone else feel this way? I'm deep in some Reddit threads for shows I really like. So there I'm like, is anybody else like, is anyone saying this? Do I feel like maybe there's something here? And I'll just start to kind of write from there. And maybe sometimes there's not much to it. And I'm like, oh, that's just something I'll share on the podcast. Or it turns into a 5,000 word piece. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay.
No, I think that's a great way to really come up with meaningful content. And so everybody has left some comments down below for you if you want to take a minute and read
Yeah.
through that and then pick a winner for your giveaway. And while you're doing that, I've got a few announcements. If you're watching this and maybe you haven't seen another live stream today, this is hour 7 of the Right for Money and Power book launch. We hit bestseller status, #1 bestseller on Amazon today, which is super exciting. And it's
Hey,
been lovely to
congrats.
Thank you. Have amazing guests on today. And my next guest is going to be Grace Abbott in 20 minutes at 2 p.m. Pacific time, who is a creative freelancer. And we're going to be talking about freelancing in 2026 and all of the things we should think about. But Ashley, thank you so much for coming on. Would love to hear who you have crowned as the winner of the giveaway to your amazing Substack, Deep Trouble.
I'm going to go with Allison and the book as a dying art form because clearly it is not. And also, I am working on a book right now. And yeah, I also think obviously we're in a moment where books are inspiring TV with heated rivalry, and we're just going to see so much more of that. So get out there, write your book, write it, do it because they're blowing up. It's not dying, it's bigger than ever.
Amazing. Allison, go ahead and DM Ashley your email to claim that giveaway. And thank you, Ashley, for being so generous and giving away a club subscription to Deep Trouble. For everybody else, go subscribe to Deep Trouble. It is truly excellent TV criticism and commentary. I've read a lot as a former TV writer, so you've got to go check it out. Ashley, is there anything else that you want to know, let people know about where to find you online, on YouTube, any comedy shows you might have coming up or anything like that?
If you are in San Francisco, I will be at Sketchfest this weekend at Lost Church
Oh,
doing shows Saturday and Sunday night. And then back in LA, you can go to theashleyray.com or follow me at The Ashley Ray everywhere, and you'll see my shows, articles, everything. So, yeah, thanks so
amazing.
much for
I'm
having me.
I'm based in San Francisco, so I'm going to try to make it to this weekend. So that's awesome. So very cool. Thank you so much, Ashley. Really appreciate it, and really appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.